The time by Carrie Chris is 6 p.m. Time for CBX Business News. The Business News Headlines is brought to you by QMX Wealth Management, making more possible.
An economic flashpoint, regional aid, and a U.S. deficit shock. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Tuesday, November 25, 2025. I'm Rachel Moncrief. Thanks for joining us. Coming up in the newscast, locally, PIOJ warns of a deep economic crisis, saying Jamaica is now facing its worst quarter since the COVID-19 pandemic. On the regional front, St. Kitts and Nevis provides US $100,000 in aid and deploys utility crews to support Jamaica's hurricane recovery. And over on the global stage, the United States records a US $284 billion October deficit as the government shutdown and tariff surges disrupt the nation's fiscal outlook. Stay tuned as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
I see my granny I save her money under her mattress.
Exactly.
Okay.
Your grandmother house never burned down?
No, how you reach that, so? That was a one-off thing.
That could have happened to anybody. That's why you must put your money in a financial institution and protect it.
What if the bank crash?
Well, that's where JDIC comes in.
What you mean?
JDIC is a financial safety net which provides coverage for your money in case your financial institution fails.
Explain that to me.
All right, because of the JDIC deposit insurance scheme, once you put your money into a financial institution like a bank or building society, you can get coverage of up to a maximum of $1.2 million per deposit of your financial institution if it should fail. And for even more information, you can visit their new website at www.jdic.org, and you can follow the social media platforms for the latest information.
JDIC, protecting deposits for you and me.
The local news is brought to you by Derriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments.
Back to CBX Business News. We begin with a sobering new warning from the Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ. Jamaica's economic outlook has taken a dramatic turn, with new data from the PIOJ confirming that the country is entering its deepest downturn in years, and the road back will be long, uneven, and brutally expensive. After months of clawing back momentum, the October to December quarter is now on track to deliver a historic collapse, one so severe it has been compared to the darkest days of COVID-19, and the timing couldn't be more jarring. This breaking assessment comes just weeks after Jamaica posted one of its strongest rebounds in recent memory, an estimated 4.6% GDP growth for July to September quarter, powered by the full-scale recovery of sectors crippled by Hurricane Beryl. The startling update was delivered by PIOJ Director General Dr. Wayne Henry during the Institute's quarterly press briefing earlier today.
The Jamaican economy recorded fairly robust growth during the review quarter, reflecting the recovery from the impact of Hurricane Beryl. Going forward, the economy will be faced with significant challenges arising from the catastrophic impact of Hurricane Melissa. It is anticipated that the economy will record a sharp downturn during the October to December quarter, the worst quarterly performance since the April to June quarter of 2020, when the island was impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic.
In a stark warning, the Planning Institute head says Jamaica should not expect a return to economic growth until the fourth quarter of 2026.
The depth and duration of this current shock is contingent on the timing of the implementation of major initiatives to support the humanitarian and economic recovery activities. Resumption of economic growth is not anticipated until October to December of 2026 for that quarter. This is against the background that a significant downturn was recorded in the second half of the current fiscal year, and the ongoing rebuilding efforts would generate higher levels of output.
Dr. Henry estimates that the country is 3 to 5 years away from fully rebuilding its output capacity.
The depth and duration of this current shock is contingent on the timing of the implementation of major initiatives to support the humanitarian and economic recovery activities. Resumption of economic growth is not anticipated until October to December of 2026 for that quarter. This is against the background that a significant downturn was recorded in the second half of the current fiscal year, and the ongoing rebuilding efforts would generate higher levels of output. However, recovery to pre-Hurricane Melissa output levels is conservatively projected to be within 3 to 5 years. There was significant loss of productive assets, which implies that an extended time is required to rebuild. Given that recovery from COVID took 2 years with productive assets in place, we anticipate that at least twice the time will be required for full recovery from Hurricane Melissa.
Meanwhile, PIOJ Director General Dr. Wayne Henry says Jamaica should brace for a recession as the country heads towards at least 2 consecutive quarters of economic decline following the historic devastation of Hurricane Melissa. Responding to questions during today's quarterly briefing, Dr. Henry says the magnitude of the shock and the speed of the slowdown indicates the downturn will be both severe and unavoidable.
Given the projection that we're outlining here, the country should brace for recession. Our focus is on as fast as we can restoring livelihoods, as we say, protecting the vulnerable, and trying to get things up and running from a humanitarian standpoint, that we provide food, shelter, clothing, and then at the same time we are looking at the medium to long-term restoration and rebuilding and resilience building activities. So those will continue, but as we look at the impact of Melissa, nothing like this we've seen before, we should brace for recession.
That was PIOJ Director General Dr. Wayne Henry. Royalton Hotels and Resorts has officially confirmed the late 2026 reopening dates for all 5 of its Jamaican properties. According to the company, Royalton Negril, Hideaway at Royalton Negril, and Grand Lido Negril will reopen on August 25, 2026. Meanwhile, Royalton Blue Waters and Hideaway at Royalton Blue Waters are set to follow on September 15, 2026. The company says these dates reflect a careful approach to rebuilding, ensuring that working conditions are stable, secure, and fully prepared for normal operations when the resorts return to service. Guests who already have reservations will continue to be offered flexible options, including penalty-free cancellations, rebooking, or relocation to another Royalton resort within the company's Caribbean portfolio. To maintain continuity on the ground, Royalton is keeping over 200 team members on site to oversee maintenance and preservation throughout the restoration period. At the same time, managers and key staff are being deployed on task force assignments at other Royalton resorts across the Caribbean. The company says this ensures steady employment, ongoing training, and strengthened skills development until the Jamaican properties reopen. In other news, Jamaica's central bank has moved aggressively to shield the economy from post-Melissa volatility, pumping US $210 million into the foreign exchange market to stabilize supplies and prevent a disorderly slide in the dollar. The intervention, confirmed in the Bank of Jamaica's latest monetary policy statement, marks one of the largest short-term foreign exchange support operations in recent years. At the same time, the BOJ held its policy rate at 5.75%, saying financial stability, not tighter monetary screws, is the priority as the country battles its deepest economic disruption in decades. The BOJ says the unprecedented damage from Hurricane Melissa has left Jamaica exposed to a two-front economic shock: a sharp contraction in output and a looming inflation surge driven by higher food prices, supply shortages, and reconstruction demand. The bank also warns that headline inflation will rise sharply from 2.9% and could breach targets well into mid-2026, with risks skewed to the upside if domestic demand outspaces the recovery of supply chains. And with the central bank now moving to stabilize both inflation and the foreign exchange market, let's take a look at how the Jamaican dollar traded today. In Tuesday's currency trading session, the US dollar is selling for $161.12, the Canadian for $113.16, the pound sterling for $212.26, while the going rate for the euro is $186.69. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities. In Tuesday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 112 stocks, of which 42 advanced, to close at 3,339.43 points.
And it's time for Market Education Feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standard.
In today's Market Education Feature, we're defining logistics. Logistics refers to the end-to-end management of acquiring, storing, and moving resources to their final destination. The term originated in the military, where it described the coordination of equipment and supplies. But today, it is widely used in business, especially in manufacturing and supply chain operations. Efficient logistics management ensures on-time deliveries, cost-effective operations, and a strong competitive advantage. At its core, logistics is about getting the right quantity of goods to the right place at the right time in good condition. It also involves selecting reliable suppliers and distributors and evaluating how quickly and effectively they can respond to a company's needs.
The Market Education Feature was brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards.
And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next.
The local news is brought to you by Diamond Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses, and pulse investments.
How may I assist you today?
I want to open an account for me and my son.
That's great. Let me see your documents. I understand you want to know about our savings account. Let me show you a few accounts and the benefits of each account.
Why do you need so many documents from my mommy?
It's called KYC, Know Your Customer. This helps us to protect you and treat you right. Thanks for the documents. Take a look at this brochure. Let's discuss savings accounts. A savings account is an interest-bearing deposit account. Customers with savings deposit accounts are covered up to $1.2 million per ban, so you don't have anything to worry about.
This financial literacy tip is brought to you by Bank of Jamaica, promoting financial inclusion. For more information, visit our BOJ Real Talk playlist on our YouTube channel.
Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. In one of the region's most decisive post-Melissa interventions, St. Kitts and Nevis has rolled out a US $100,000 relief package and dispatched utility strike teams to help Jamaica recover from one of the most costly climate disasters in its modern history. Speaking during a press conference earlier today, Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew didn't mince words. He says Melissa isn't a one-off disaster. It's the new economic threat multiplier for small islands everywhere.
With respect to Jamaica, we have pledged $100,000 US almost immediately. In addition to that, we have also sent workers from Skelec and Nevlec. And in addition to that, we continue to work with OECS, CDEMA, and CARICOM, where through those various entities, we continue to support the Jamaican recovery effort.
Behind the Federation's swift response is a bigger, more strategic play. St. Kitts and Nevis is betting heavily on resilience to power its bold, sustainable island state agenda.
And that is why, to a great extent, I have invested with this government heavily in building out the sustainable island state. We have invested tens of millions of dollars into water. We have invested significantly into energy. We are now investing, as you know, heavily in healthcare, in our digital transformation, and we are continuing.
That was Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Terence Drew. Antigua and Barbuda's economy is closing the fiscal year on a stronger than expected footing, with Prime Minister Gaston Brown announcing a projected 4.8% real GDP expansion for 2025 and 5% growth next year. Prime Minister Brown says the country has crossed the US $2 billion GDP threshold, a symbolic milestone that places the Twin Island nation among the Caribbean's strongest post-pandemic performers. He described the latest indicators as remarkable, adding that his administration's record shows it has delivered for the people of Antigua and Barbuda. Brown also highlighted a significant rise in living standards, reporting that per capita income has now topped EC $60,000, putting Antigua and Barbuda ahead of several regional peers. Beyond headline growth, the Prime Minister pointed to broad-based gains across education, agriculture, and tourism. Sectors, he says, will anchor the country's next phase of expansion. In other news, Minister for Infrastructure Jose Vanterpool says Anguilla's new Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport Terminal will officially open on December 15, 2025, with operations shifting overnight from the old facility. Speaking at a post-budget press briefing on Monday, Vanterpool says all major construction works are now complete, with only minor defects being addressed.
I know that there have been a lot of questions within the public domain as to when the airport will be opening and if the airport terminal will actually be opening before the end of the year. We at MICO are pleased to confirm that the Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport Terminal building will officially open on December 15th, 2025. This state-of-the-art facility represents a major investment in Anguilla's future, designed to deliver a world-class travel experience for the residents and visitors to Anguilla alike.
The upgrade comes just in time for the winter tourist season. Bermuda Air will operate inaugural flights from the new terminal just days after its opening.
Adding to the excitement, Bermuda Air will operate its inaugural flights from the new terminal on December 17th, 18th, and 19th, marking the start of our winter season and welcoming our new guests into a modern, spacious, and efficient environment.
That was Minister for Infrastructure, Jose Vanterpool. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 23 securities, of which 5 advanced, 6 declined, and 12 traded firm. Today's winners are First Citizens Group Financial Holdings, Scotiabank Trinidad and Tobago, Massey Holdings, and Unilever Caribbean, while leading the losers are One Caribbean Media, Trinidad Cement, National Enterprises, and Republic Financial Holdings. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All TNT Index advanced by 6.86 points to close at 1,375.23. The Composite Index advanced by 3.73 points to close at 950.26. The Cross-Listed Index advanced by 0.05 points to close at 69.32. The SME Index remained at 96.18. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up.
The Jamaica Stock Exchange is moving again in the right direction, moving again in history and transformation and under visionary leadership. Generations to come, like my son and my son's children, by the time they are able to talk, they understand things to do with the stock exchange.
As we go this journey of market news, market education is never enough. So we know that CBX will also provide that avenue for more content. We also interrogated our market through survey, and the result was conclusive, with approximately 70% of those interviewed stating that they needed more in-depth business information. That's why we are here.
Welcome to CBX.
Back in international news, Washington has posted a sharply higher budget deficit to open the new fiscal year. One is shaped by shutdown delays, record tariff revenues, and a major accounting shift that pulled forward billions of dollars in benefit payments. The U.S. Treasury says the federal government recorded a $284 billion deficit in October, up 10% from the same month last year. But much of that spike reflects a timing distortion. Roughly $105 billion in November's military and healthcare benefits were shifted into October because of the calendar. When adjusted for that, the deficit would have been about $180 billion, a 29% improvement from October 2024. Even so, spending surged to $689 billion, while revenue climbed to a record $404 billion, driven by an all-time high of $31.4 billion in customs duties. President Donald Trump defended the tariff strategy on Truth Social, saying revenues would skyrocket and referencing the Supreme Court's ongoing review of his authority under emergency law. And those U.S. fiscal signals come as global energy markets prepare for a major meeting that could shape supply expectations into the new year. In oil, OPEC Plus is expected to keep output levels unchanged when ministers meet on Sunday, as the group shifts focus to a thorny internal debate over how much crude member states can truly produce. According to sources, the alliance, which pumps around half of the world's oil, will concentrate on developing a mechanism to measure each country's maximum production capacity, a benchmark that will determine 2027 output baselines. The long-running dispute pits countries like Nigeria, which wants higher quotas despite limited spare capacity, against producers such as the United Arab Emirates, which holds significant unused output. The tension has already reshaped the group's membership. Angola exited OPEC Plus in 2024 over a quota disagreement. Sources say no change is expected to first quarter 2026 policy, nor to 2026 group-wide output levels approved in May. While energy ministers negotiate quotas, one of Europe's largest industrial employers is facing negotiations of its own, this time over the future of its workforce. At Germany's ThyssenKrupp Steel Europe, worker representatives have begun talks on securing jobs and co-determination rights as India's Jindal Steel International advances its takeover bid. IG Metall, Europe's largest industrial union, says the goal is a fair and best owner agreement that protects jobs, plant locations, and workers' influence in corporate decision-making, an influence that has traditionally been central to how ThyssenKrupp operates. Jindal Steel has submitted an indicative bid and is carrying out detailed due diligence before deciding whether to submit a binding offer. IG Metall has asked both ThyssenKrupp Steel management and the German parent company to enter talks at short notice. ThyssenKrupp says it intends to do so soon. Jindal has not yet commented. And finally this evening, we head to aviation, where Europe's largest airline by passenger numbers is entering the holiday season with strong tailwinds. Ryanair says December bookings, including the critical Christmas travel period, are running slightly ahead of last year, with average fares rising in the mid to high single-digit range. CEO Michael O'Leary says the airline is half a percentage point ahead of where it stood at the same time in 2024, even with 40% of seats still left to sell through the end of December. The airline recently raised its full-year passenger forecast to 207 million, helped by improved Boeing aircraft deliveries that allowed Ryanair to add capacity earlier in the year. O'Leary added that December is essentially Christmas, noting that the first half of the month is traditionally slow, but the holiday push drives the overall load factor. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of the break. And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, PIOJ warns of a deep economic crisis as Jamaica faces worst quarter since 2020. Regionally, St. Kitts and Nevis provides US $100,000 in aid, utility crews to support Jamaica's Melissa recovery. And internationally, US records a $284 billion deficit in October. Shutdown and tariff surges upend fiscal picture. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rachelle Moncrief. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.